Take a look at some of the top headlines of this hour. BNP expresses confidence in forming government after landmark poll. Opposition says won't engage in obstructive politics. World leaders congratulate Tarique Rahman. President Trump warns Iran of a very traumatic outcome without a nuclear deal. He expressed hope for progress in the next month following his White House meeting with Netanyahu. North Korea vows a terrible response to any further drone incursions from the south. Seoul denied official involvement in the January incident, attributing it to civilians. Officials announced the conclusion of the immigration enforcement operations in Minneapolis. A congressional hearing reviewed ICE's presence, while a judge ruled that detainees were denied access to lawyers. Obama says US less safe after Trump reverses Obama-era ruling that greenhouse gases endanger public health. The White House called the reversal the largest deregulation in American history, saying it would make cars cheaper. US President Donald Trump says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu should receive a pardon for corruption charges, saying Israeli President Isaac Herzog should be ashamed of himself for not granting one. Russia fully blocks US messenger app WhatsApp, owned by Meta Platforms, for failing to comply with local law, suggesting Russians turn to a state-backed national messenger instead. NASA set to launch 4 astronauts to the International Space Station, replacing a crew that was evacuated early due to a medical issue. The pre-dawn launch was delayed by 2 days over adverse weather forecasts across the US East Coast. And for your top story this hour, the Bangladesh National Party, BNP, has secured a landmark victory in the parliamentary elections. The results, which were confirmed by 4 a.m. local time, show the BNP clinching 185 of the 300 seats in the Jatiya Sangsad, easily surpassing the halfway mark needed for a majority. Their main rival, the Islamist Jamaat-e-Islami, led by Tarique Rahman, conceded defeat, securing only 56 seats. Prime Ministerial contender Tarique Rahman, the 60-year-old son of former Prime Minister Khalida Zia, has seen leaving his office surrounded by supporters celebrating the win. Let's hear from the supporters of the BNP as they celebrate this monumental moment.
I come here to celebrate this occasion. It's a great victory. I am the great fan of Mr. Tarique Zia. So I come here to see him here after this win.
Basically, I mean, it's a fascinating moment for us because after 17 years, we got the opportunity to vote, and we could vote for the candidates of the party which we love.
Of course, he's the greatest leader we could ever ask for, and I don't know. I really hope he is the change that we were looking for after whatever happened in July.
Now let's also turn to Thomas Keane, senior consultant of the International Crisis Group, who shared his thoughts on the election results. Keane has highlighted the importance of having an opposition in Parliament, noting that the result is beneficial for democracy in Bangladesh. He has also pointed out that Tarique Rahman faces the challenge of implementing his policy platform while dealing with the post-election turmoil. Let's listen in to his comments.
Result is good for democracy in Bangladesh. I mean, it's important that there is an opposition in the parliament. At the same time, the BNP does have a decent, mandate to implement its policy platform. The key challenge is managing the kind of macroeconomic stability but making sure that you know, the economy is delivering on the aspirations of Bangladeshis. Sheikh Hasina's failure to do that was a key reason why she was forced from office. If the economy hadn't been in such a bad state, it would have been, I think, very unlikely to see the mass kind of mobilization against her.
We are now being joined by Major General Gigi Dwivedi, who is a war veteran and a professor of international relations, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. What factors are analysis citing to argue that the election results are positive for Bangladesh's political stability and the future?
Well, Ellen, I think there are a couple of factors which would indicate that the results are positive. First and foremost, BNP, that is the Bangladesh National Party, which in its mandate had promised that it will bring back the democratic norms, back on the track. Well, that means that the mandate by the people is in favor of the democratic forces rather than the Islamist agenda which the Jamaati had portrayed. The second point is the victory, the margin of victory. That means it will be a stable government because they are almost headed for a 2/3 majority, and that means that the numbers are with the BNP, and they would be able to pursue their agenda both in the economic, foreign policy, and the other domains. And thirdly, as far as the Tarique Rahman, he had made a couple of statements, and he said that it will be Bangladesh first, and he will not be leaning to either of the neighbors, and also he will have to do some balancing act as far as the major powers are concerned, because right now there is a power play going on in Bangladesh. So if you put all these factors together, this is definitely a very positive outcome, not only for Bangladesh, but for the neighbors of Bangladesh and the region at large. Ellen.
And how could the election results reshape Bangladesh's domestic policy priorities, especially regarding jobs, governance and youth expectations?
Well, Ellen, the point was that major grouse of the people against former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was firstly, it was very authoritarian government. Secondly, the economy wasn't doing well, and that was one of the main reasons that the student took up to protest, because there was a very high rate of unemployment. And the third important factor is that the opportunities that the nation was looking for possibly were not available to the young people. So this new dispensation, the new government that comes in, will have to meet up the aspiration of the people. So first and foremost, they'll have to address the economic issues, and Bangladesh has already signed a bilateral trade agreement with America. That's a very positive sign, because that will give them a lot of relief as far as the economic is concerned, because majorly the Bangladesh economy is dependent upon the textile and apparels, so that will give them a very important boost. Secondly, would be the sharing of the power or the empowerment of the people, because if they are in connect with the people, it's a government that runs which is closely connected with the masses, that will give the masses an opportunity to be part or be stakeholders in the whole process. And thirdly, as Keen had mentioned, that opposition is very important for any democratic system. So they have an opposition, though Jamaatis have only got 70 seats, but that is a viable opposition as far as the democratic systems are concerned. And the fourth point will be how exactly the BNP and its leadership plays out, both in the internal dimension and on the external policies, will actually determine how successful would the government be. So all I can say is winning election is one part of it, but the real process or the real challenge starts when you begin to run the government. Now that's the challenge. We'll have to see how far BNP is able to deliver to the aspiration of the people of Bangladesh. Alan.
Thank you so much, Major General Gigi Dwivedi, for joining us here today on NewsX World. In a recent post on X, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has shared his delight in speaking with Tarique Rahman, congratulating him on his remarkable victory in the Bangladesh elections. Modi has also reaffirmed India's commitment to the peace, progress and prosperity of both countries, noting the deep-rooted historical and cultural ties between the two nations. Ukraine's foreign minister said that China could play a key role in moving towards a just peace in Ukraine. The FM shared that he has invited China's foreign minister to visit Ukraine, while also receiving an invitation to visit China in return. He believes that China can help bring a fair resolution to the conflict. This diplomatic exchange comes at a time when both nations are looking for ways to address the ongoing war in Ukraine and move closer to a peace agreement. Ukraine's foreign minister expressed hope that China's influence could help mediate a peace deal, furthering diplomatic relations between the countries. In Munich today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced significant steps towards enhancing security for both Ukraine and Europe. Among the key developments is the launch of the first joint Ukrainian-German drone production enterprise. The move is part of a broader agenda that includes bilateral and multilateral meetings aimed at strengthening security cooperation across the continent. Zelensky emphasised the need for increased joint production, greater resilience and better coordination in Europe's security framework. He stressed that the ultimate goal is to bring an end to the war in Ukraine through a dignified peace and to establish reliable security guarantees for both Ukraine and all of Europe. Zelensky assured that these efforts will ensure no European country feels vulnerable or left unprotected. The US Department of Justice has moved to drop charges against two men arrested in connection with the January shooting of Venezuelan immigrant Julio Cesar Sosa Celis by ICE officers in Minneapolis. The decision comes after the discovery of new evidence that contradicted previous allegations. The incident occurred during a targeted immigration enforcement operation under President Donald Trump's administration. ICE officers initially pursued Sosa Celis, mistakenly identifying him as the driver of a vehicle involved in a traffic stop. However, an FBI affidavit revealed that Sosa Celis was not driving and that confrontation escalated when the men allegedly struck the officer with a broom and a shovel. The DOJ's move to dismiss the charges with pre-justice prevents them from being reintroduced in the future. We are now being joined by Professor Rohan Gunaratna, who is an international affairs expert, joining us from Singapore. Thank you so much for joining us here today on News X World. What does the DOJ's decision to drop these charges tell us about how solid the government's original case was?
Really, what has happened is there has been a review of the case, and the FBI investigation very clearly shows that the alleged attackers dropped their broom and shovel when they saw the officers of the immigration. And so based on the new discovery, the US Department of Justice has dropped the charges. It demonstrates that the Americans, when they find new evidence, they will review it and they will make a decision. This is good for the reputation of the United States. It's very good for the reputation of the FBI, US Department of Justice, and even the immigration authorities. So when there are such incidents and such events, it is so important for everyone to cooperate and collaborate and base their judgment, base their decision on the most recent material evidence, and that is what the Americans have done.
And does this move reflect problems in how ICE and DHS handle enforcement operations and investigations?
It reflects that there was very significant pressure on the part of those American law enforcement officers to crack down on immigration. But it also reflects that the US system is a very solid, very robust system. It is driven by rules, and that there has been no compromise. When they received new evidence, they decided to drop those charges because the previous charges were based on evidence that was not solid.
And could dropping the charges influence broader debates over immigration policy and the use of force?
Certainly, it will result in a review, and I believe that this is a very good message for everyone, that they need to be cautious in their operations, in their decisions.
Thank you. Don't go too far, as we will be back with you very shortly. Some breaking news now. Judge Dame Victoria Sharp has said that Palestine Action's co-founder has won a legal challenge over the group's ban as a terrorist organisation on 2 grounds. But Palestine Action will remain banned to allow further arguments and to give the government time to consider an appeal. Meanwhile, Huda Amouri has launched the legal action after then Home Secretary Yvette Cooper's decision to proscribe the group, which came into force on the 5th of July last year. The law change put Palestine Action on the same legal footing as the likes of ISIS and Al-Qaeda are making membership or support for. The group in a crime punishable for up to 14 years in prison. Even wearing a t-shirt or carrying a sign with the group's name on it can attract a maximum 6-month sentence. Denmark's Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, is set to meet Marco Rubio in Munich to discuss Greenland. As leaders gather for the Munich Secretary Conference, reports suggest the discussions will centre around important issues such as NATO, Arctic security and the relationship between the US and Europe. With NATO's role in maintaining global security being a key topic, the conference will provide an opportunity for leaders to talk about these critical challenges. We are now being joined again by Professor Rohan Gunaratha. Thank you so much for joining us here today and for coming back. How does this planned meeting reflect evolving geopolitics in the Arctic, especially with Russia and China showing increased interest?
Ellie, what we have witnessed is that Arctic security, or what you call polar cap security, is becoming a very important aspect in the global security agenda. So there's a new landscape that is emerging, new security landscape, where the Americans want to take control of Greenland so that they will have access to the Arctic, because that has a lot of oil, gas, fish, and other minerals. Of course, the Russians and the Chinese are already operating in that area. And with the polar caps melting, these superpowers will compete in that region, especially in the Arctic. So that means the Americans want to have a very significant presence in the Arctic. This is a part of President Trump's agenda to strengthen Europe, work with Europe, but also lead Europe when it comes to challenging Russia and China. This is what President Trump is doing. He has already sent Marco Rubio to have discussions with the Danish Prime Minister. Marco Rubio will announce the American position with regard to Greenland at the Munich Security Summit, which is a very important global security event.
And could closer Denmark-US cooperation on Greenland spur tensions with other Arctic Council members?
Certainly it can happen. Some European countries are disappointed with the United States, but I think they should all understand what President Trump is trying to do. He has his own vision for the Western Hemisphere. He has his own vision for strengthening Europe. In fact, most European countries had a very low defense budget. He wants it raised to 5%. So I think that the European countries will cooperate and collaborate with the United States so that Trump himself will be less assertive and aggressive when it comes to dealing with the Europeans.
And after these talks, what do you think is going to be the outcome from it? Especially, do you think Denmark and Greenland have sort of had some domestic considerations with the US? What do you think will come out of it?
It is highly debated, but I can tell you that unless there is significant concessions made for expanded American presence in the Greenland, the relations between US and Europe, relations between US and Greenland may deteriorate. So it is so important for the European leaders to cooperate with Trump, because what Trump wants is a strong Western civilization, a Western Hemisphere to be strong and powerful, because it deteriorated very significantly in the last 3 to 4 decades because of unregulated migration and because of various ideologies that has changed the Western landscape. Trump wants to change all that. He's a Christian nationalist, and he wants to ensure that Europe mirrors the United States when it comes to standing up against the rest of the world.
Thank you so much, Professor Rowan, for joining us here today on News Expert. US District Judge Manish Shah in Chicago has temporarily stopped the Trump administration from cutting $600 million in public health funding for California, Colorado, Illinois, and Minnesota. The judge ruled that these states were likely to win a lawsuit, arguing the cuts were a form of retaliation for opposing federal immigration policies. This funding, which helps support programs like HIV prevention, will stay in place for at least 14 days while the case moves forward. Authorities in Arizona are facing a tense standoff as Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos refuses to grant the FBI access to crucial evidence in the investigation into the abduction of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, mother of NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie. The FBI had requested physical evidence, including a glove and DNA samples from the home of the Guthries, to be processed at its National Crime Lab in Virginia. However, Sheriff Nanos has insisted on using a private lab in Florida, delaying the FBI's ability to assist with the investigation. The Sheriff's Department, which holds primary jurisdiction over the case, confirmed that several items of evidence, including gloves, were recovered but did not provide further details. Despite this, law enforcement officials warned that outsourcing forensic analysis is slowing down the case. The FBI's involvement can only be requested by the Sheriff's Department, and federal resources have not been fully leveraged. Nancy Guthrie was last seen on January the 31st, and relatives reported her missing the following day. Traces of blood found at her home confirmed to be hers, further pointing to an abduction. The FBI has since increased the reward for the information leading to the resolution of the case to $100,000. Some breaking news for you. Iraqi Foreign Minister Fuad Hussein has stressed that the decision to reappoint former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki is a domestic matter for Iraq. However, he has noted that Iraq takes the signals from the United States very seriously in this context. Hussein has also confirmed that there are no changes in the plans for the withdrawal of US troops from Iraq, which is still set to be completed by the end of 2026. On the issue of Iran, Hussein has reiterated Iraq's opposition to the use of violence against the country. He has clarified that Iraq is not acting as a mediator in the current situation. Additionally, he has commented on the rise of the Islamic State in Syria, stating that the group has become very active in recent times, particularly following clash between the Syrian government and Kurdish-backed SDF forces. Iraq is facing challenges in handling the influx of Islamic State prisoners, with Hussein calling for more financial support to deal with the issue. Hussein has also briefed that Iraq is in talks with Arab and Muslim countries to repatriate their nationals, while European countries have been more reluctant. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.